who's taking it over next. I'll give it back to Paul so he can take us to the next session. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you, Steve.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for that. That was a really good panel discussion. Unfortunately, I can't turn my video on, so never mind. I think we'll just move directly on to Michael Richards talking about the technical components in cross-border remittances. And I think you're going to be talking to Ong Thor from ThisWorks. So that's it, Michael, over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. So you've probably seen me before. Well, if you've been here this morning, you definitely have. But I'd just like to ask Ong to introduce himself and his position on the project.
Okay, hello, hi everyone. It's nice to meet you all in person. My name is Ong Thor. I'm Deputy CTO of ThisWorks.
Okay, and we are going to take you through some issues relating to actually implementing a motor loop system which has to deal with cross-border. Now, I got a bit worried earlier on in the previous session because people started talking about things we were going to talk about, but we want to pitch this really at a level between the question of how you define the schemes and detailed questions about fields and translation and things like that, and talk about some of the issues that are arisen and issues that we think will probably crop up for anybody who has to think about providing cross-border access in a motor loop system. Now, I had originally thought that I would make a jocular start by talking about a particular pop song, but when I look at the youthful faces arrayed in front of me, I realized that I've got an audience that's probably never heard of The Who, and still less of their immortal hit, My Generation, which we have repurposed for this system. And this is the song that we were going to sing. Well, I'm going to ask you to sing it with me, but you probably don't know this. So we don't want to deploy anything badly designed, but we find we got to work in the world that we find. So that's my implementation. Alternative way of looking at this is a quote from a man whom I guess the middle-aged among you will probably recognize. The young, I couldn't find anything. But our version of that is everybody's got a plan until they get told to implement something. And then you've got to think about things in a different way. So what are we going to talk about? A motor loop scheme really is like a family, an existing motor loop scheme. The participants know each other pretty well. They're operating in the same kind of environment, typically the same types of institutions. So they know each other well. They're living in the same virtual space, which is the motor loop scheme. So it's kind of like the family that lives at home. But connecting to a cross-border system is like growing up and leaving home. It's full of opportunities, but it's a big world and nobody knows you there. So you've got to behave in a kind of different way when you're in a cross-border world. So what are we going to talk about? First of all, question of duplicate identifiers. We're going to talk about settlement models. We're going to talk about fees. We're going to talk about KYC and identifier management. Now, people said in the previous session, we don't want to think about any of that's POC. Ong and I think, yeah, but if we do things in a way and then it turns out we have to completely redo them when we move from the PLC to the production system, who's going to get the blame, Ong? Yeah, technical people get the blame. Yes. So we just do what we're told. And then people say, why did you do that? And we say, because you told us to. No, I didn't. Okay, so let's look at the question of duplicate identifiers. Nii already talked about this. So you want to take this side of things?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Okay, duplicate identifiers. Okay, regardless of this cross-border or domestic, we need to find out the payee information before we are doing the transactions. So here, we got the same problem because, okay, sorry, I think I need to repeat again. Okay, what I want to say, regardless of this cross-border or domestic, before we are doing the transition or payments, we need to find out who is the payee and then also this payee belongs to which mobile money system. And in the identification process, these duplicate identifiers are the problems, because let's say a person or a payee, they belongs to more than one mobile money system, and sometimes they have a mobile number and then they share to their family members, and their family members also create a mobile wallet account using their own KYC information. So in this case, their MFISDN number doesn't uniquely identify the mobile money system. So we need to find a way to understand which mobile money system to route to address resolution request to. Okay, but this problem is already solved inside the same scheme, because in the module loop, we know each other. Even in the same end user application, they allow the customer to choose the destination wallet information. So in the same system, sending FI can include the information in the address resolution request. Okay, so using this, we still can extract the customer KYC information. Also, we can also do the checking about this account status, such as account is active or inactive. Okay, but this thing is not working in the cross-border world, because in the sending FI, they cannot know about this mobile number belongs to which mobile money system. And also they do not have any idea about this, the cross country will have how many mobile money system also. So we need to address this solution also. So for our solution, we need to identify if we provide the mobile money system, if we provide the MSISDN, it must return the uniquely identified mobile money system. And in our solutions, the payee, if they want, they can change the mobile money system to receive the remittance. For example, I have wallet A, wallet B. So right now I'm using wallet A to receive the remittance. The next day, I may change it to receive the remittance inside the wallet B. So our solution must provide such kind of thing also. Okay, so for that case, we prepare 3 solutions. The first one is something like we use in the same scheme. In the same scheme, as we mentioned just now, we can enter the DFSB information, and then we can extract the KYC information. But in the cross-border one, we cannot do like this, because for the sending side, they cannot know about this DFSB code. And also, the sending application, they need to modify whenever the DFSB code is changed or whenever we add a new DFSB into the hub. So the first solution is like this. Okay. Then second one is the last registration wins. So it means, let's say today I'm using wallet A. So I register an account in the wallet A, and then the hub that I will be receiving this remittance inside the wallet A also. Then the next day I register account at the wallet B, then the hub will think, okay, he will start receiving the remittance inside the wallet B. So if we are using this approach, customer may be surprised, because yesterday I received remittance inside my wallet A, but the next day we receive remittance inside the wallet B. So this solution actually is a very simple and easy to implement, but there are some user experience issue. So, and some more, this solution doesn't solve the share handset problem. Just now, as I mentioned, person will share the handset to their family member. So in that case, this solution also doesn't solve it. So the third solution is something like an improvement to the second solution. So in the third solution, customer can choose which one is their preferred wallet. So minimize, now I'm using the wallet A as to receive the remittance, then later I can change it to wallet B. So for the third solution, the implementation is a little bit complex, but this one still doesn't solve the share handset problem. Okay, in our remittance POC, the things we use is latest registration win, because in current POC, it is very simple to set up, and we also do not have much participants also. So in the future, we have planned to upgrade this solution to the third solution. Let's make it next slide, please. Okay, so here is the third solution. In the third solution, user can switch the DFSB information. So meaning let's say in the hub, there are 3 wallets. Now I'm using the wallet A to receive the remittance. Tomorrow I want to receive the remittance inside the wallet B. So what I can do is I go into the wallet B, and then I will inform the hub that, okay, today, starting from today, I want to receive this remittance inside the wallet B. So the Mojalu hub will confirm using the OTP to the user. Because this activity, we are making sure the customer initiated. So Mojalu will confirm OTP. After the OTP verification is processed is 10, then the default receiving wallet will be wallet B. So these are the 3 solutions we implemented. We are going to implement for this cross-border POC. Okay, so Michael, thank you.
Thanks very much, Koang. You should keep it in case people ask you questions.
Okay, great, sure.
Thank you. Okay, so that's that one. Let's look now at settlement models, which people said we're not going to have to think about. But when we settle between systems, in the Mojalu world, we typically only need to worry about a single settlement structure. But in the cross-border world, funds will typically arrive from another scheme on a timetable which is different from the Mojalu scheme's settlement timetable. It may be completely different, or it may be slightly different, but it'll almost certainly be different. So this is likely to place liquidity pressure on the cross-network provider as a settling participant in the remittee scheme. For the moment, we think we will definitely need to be able to distinguish between internal transfers and remittance transfers, and we'll need to be able to settle them according to separate settlement models. Now, how can we distinguish an external transfer? We could use an identifier type, which is specific to external transfers. It's got the attraction that it enables participants to register their customers separately for receipt of remittances. So where remittances, for instance, require additional KYC information, having a separate identifier type and getting participants, mobile money systems, to get the extra KYC information from their customers may be a good solution. But it needs modifications to the party ID type as we currently have it in Mojalu. The second alternative is to use the transaction type object where there is an existing field that we could ask people to set. And in both these cases, the appropriate value would be set for inbound transfers by the cross-network provider. So it just has a standard thing that says, I set things in this way. We think probably for these purposes, we will use the sub-scenario element of the transaction type object. And there's no change required to the behavior of any of the participants in the system. So the question now is, how do we act on this difference, having defined it? So what we want is a kind of sorting hat for transfers. So we can already define settlement models by ledger type. That's a feature that we've already added to the Mojalu system. And we can apply a rule on the transfer prepare thing that reads the content of the transfer, assigns ledger types based on the content, and by default assigns the current account types. Now, all our remittances go into a separate settlement model, and we can settle them separately using the existing functionality. So we can manage this quite easily on the existing settlement model, although everybody agrees that it would be much more elegant to do it using settlement version 2. Anyway, we can leave the transfer window structure as it is for now. So that's our plan for managing a separate settlement model in the proof of concept. Let me look at fees. What's the problem here? The problem is that existing remittance corridors are generally based on point-to-point agreements on fees between FIs. Fees are set as part of these agreements, and they're typically settled out of band. But part of the point of interoperation is to replace these point-to-point relations with hub and spoke relations, with scheme relations. So that means that the existing model will be unworkable at the kind of scale we want to think about. So if you imagine a scheme with, I don't know, let's suppose 60 participants, we don't want to have 60 agreements with remitters in order to be able to settle the fees relating to it. We have to have some general way of doing that. So the solution is APIs will need to be extended to allow the definition of fees at a per transfer level, which they currently don't. We need to be able to define fees at a level of the scheme where the scheme charges hub fees and interchange fees, as it very well might. And typically these are charged out of band in relation to the individual transfers. But with cross-network traffic, this won't wash, because the cross-network fees, there's no way for the remitting party to collect those from the modular loop scheme. We have to have a way of feeding that information back into the transfer itself so that we can make sure that the remitting party, the debtor party, knows what the fees are going to be per transfer. So we may need to extend the modular loop API to support the definition of hub fees while we retain the non-repudiability check, stuff that says the information is definitely coming from the creditor party. So how far have we got with this? Not very. But we know we're going to have to do something about it. Okay, so that's fees. KYC information. Tom waits time again. Eventually we'll need a mechanism for managing this, either to have an agreed set of KYC information, which is capable of universal implementation and is appropriate to the KYC structures of the pool, i.e. doesn't place an intolerable burden on people who don't have the benefit of living in an advanced world where KYC information is easy to obtain and in standard structures. Or we need to have some way for participants to request the KYC information specific to their jurisdictions, i.e. the specific KYC information that they need. Now, the Nexus project is working in this area already. They have quite a natty solution where a scheme can have information about, for instance, the KYC information that it wants as part of its service level agreement, and where that service level agreement is accessible by other schemes. So that's a useful potential way of doing this. And it might also be possible to use the ISO 20022 message structures we talked about to support this. For the moment, though, we're in Tom waits mode. Finally, identifier management. So there's a general difference in systems that want to work with account numbers, account identifiers of one kind or another, or card bands or whatever they might be. And both the account holding financial institution and the requester need to agree on what that value is going to be. But the customer doesn't have to register an identifier in that case. The account number is already there. It's always already there. There are problems, however, in jurisdictions where branch identification, for instance, for account numbers is patchy or non-existent, as it is, for instance, in Tanzania. The other party, and we currently count ourselves in this area, we want to work with identifiers. An identifier is a trigger which an account holding institution can use to decide which account is being referenced. The account holding institution, and this is a great strength, we think, doesn't have to expose the actual account or how it identifies an actual account to anybody else. That happens internally inside the participant, and they don't need to tell anybody else how they do that. But that means the customer has to register their identifier with the account holding institution as a separate activity, unless that identifier is the account identifier already, as it is, for instance, with the MSDN, the mobile phone number for a mobile money system. But there are lots of identifiers for which that is not the case. For instance, if we imagine we wanted to solve the duplicate handsets, shared handset problem, then a way of solving it would, for instance, to identify by a national ID number instead of MSDN, and to have different family members register their national ID as part of registration with the mobile system. Then, if you sent to the national ID, it would always go to the correct mobile system. So that's an example of how that kind of thing might work. And the problem here is some systems expect to use account numbers, like SWIFT, like Visa Direct, and some systems want to use identifiers, like Moduloop, and Nexus. This is mostly, we think, a problem about formats, not about actual accounts, except where the remitting system is targeting accounts for settling and needs to know what they are. Fortunately, account resolution typically allows an identifier to be resolved to an account number. So our solution we propose is something like the following. We use the cross-network provider to map account numbers and identifiers, as long as the payment execution request is reliably transferred to the cross-network provider. It can substitute the identifier which was originally used in the address resolution request for the account number when it passes the request to the creditor party, and substitute the account number when it passes a response back to the debtor party. And it can create new account numbers as required when new payment identifiers are encountered. So provided that the address resolution process supports it, you don't need to register the account numbers with the sending, i.e. the Moduloop system. And if we're required, we can map these individual account numbers onto a single account number at the cross-network provider, that is the Visa Direct system, which is also a member of the Moduloop system. So all of the funds that are passed through from the Visa Direct system as remittances wind up in the same account, which is used as the settlement account. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say. Does anyone have any questions?
Can I just jump in straight away?
You can jump in straight away, though it would be rather rude of you to jump in advance of our audience member here who has a question. Can you possibly hold fire for a moment?
I'll wait.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Emre Queen from Uganda, Women in FinTech. Back to shared handset problem. What stops the users from having different SIM cards?
You can have alternate SIM cards. I suppose, well, I call it the shared handset problem. I should really have called it a shared SIM problem. You're right. If different family members have the same handset but different SIM cards, the problem goes away because each member will have their own MSDN, which identifies them. The problem that we have in Myanmar is people have got the same SIM card, but different family members are using it. Does that make sense? Well, so the question, SIM swap is something that happens in jurisdictions where typically mobile money systems are run by mobile network operators. So in order to belong to a different mobile money system, you have to have the SIM for the mobile network operator who operates that system. So that's how Tigo Pay works, that's how M-Pesa works, that's how MTN works. In Africa, typically mobile network operators run the mobile money systems. In Myanmar and other jurisdictions, that's not the case. Mobile money systems are run by different people, different institutions. So it's perfectly possible for a single person to belong to more than one mobile money system on the same SIM. So that's what we are calling the shared handset problem. But you're right, I should have called it a shared SIM problem. Okay, Paul.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I think that this session exemplifies why these community meetings are so important, because you've been highlighting an issue, which I've been aware has been an issue for you, but we haven't actually spoken too much about this. This is precisely the same issue we're trying to resolve within the digital public goods space. And I think you've been helping to push the product forward significantly within this proof of concept. And I thank you for that. But I think we very much need a cross-product work stream on precisely this issue around resolution of alias and how we integrate with digital identity systems, how we do peering between oracles, all of that. There's a whole separate work stream here. And I thank you for highlighting the work you've been doing in this space. And I look forward to you contributing to the Oracle work stream in the coming weeks. So thank you for that.
I think I speak for the whole FitZerWorks team when I say we're looking forward to it too.
Great.
Yeah, I
Um,
can see lots of nodding around the room.
Cool, good. Okay, thank you. I don't have any specific question. I just wanted to thank you for that session. Great.
Steve.
I just want to say the same thing in the room. I hope everybody was paying attention that these are non-trivial things that they just went through that are very significant to every project, and all of the cross-border things that we were just talking about. These are 5 non-trivial problems that they are working on in this POC to make Moat significantly better than it was before. So again, I also want to thank you, but I also hope that members of the DA who are here are also paying attention and getting involved, because we're hoping that these are changes we want to see. And so I hope
Yep.
that you guys are paying attention and thinking about how can you help them incorporate this into the core, because this is important.
Yeah, this is stuff that lets us play nicely with other systems. It's what we need to. If we recognize that there are systems in this world other than Moduloop, we need to get this right if we're going to be part of that international ecosystem.
Though, of course, we believe that the fact that not all systems are Moduloop systems is a temporary situation.
Yes, but in the transition.
Indeed. During the transitional period, we may need to make a few concessions. It's true.
Yeah, indeed. I've been asked to make sure that we finish essentially now, because everyone wants to get to lunch. So I'd like to thank you, Michael. Thank you, Kaong. And could everyone be back in about an hour's time? Thank you very much, everyone.